Good morning, students. Today we are going to deal with punctuation. Let us see why punctuation is required when we write something or when we read something. When we talk about punctuation, it's really very necessary when we are talking about written English or spoken English, or when we read anything in any language. Well, punctuation gives the reader an understanding of the meaning of the text and the idea what author wants to reveal to us. Proper punctuation is also an important tool to make your written text logical and readable. Even when we look at, even if there is a comma or a dot, which is more or less, that's going to make a huge change in the meaning of the sentence. So let us look at an example and see how it is going to make a huge difference. When we look at the first picture here, we see the picture of a lady, a grandma. Okay, so it's written as "Let's eat, grandma." And when we look at the expression of the old lady, she's like shocked. What? When we punctuate it with a comma after "let's eat" and then "grandma," that makes a sense. If not, it would sound as if we are going to eat grandma for lunch or dinner or whatever. It sounds really funny, or it can even kill us, right? In a similar way, when we look at the second picture here, I just love to bake children, which means, the chef or the baker would like to bake. But when we look at the other half of the picture, I just love to bake children. When we look at the picture, it says, as if he loves to bake children literally rather than baking a cake or a bread, right? So this this could be, one or two, examples for, how a comma or a full stop, anything more or less can change the literal meaning of a sentence. Alright, so why do we punctuate? There are some rules. What we are going to see now, why do we need to punctuate? Punctuation is used to create sense, clarity, and stress in sentences. You use punctuation marks to structure and organize your writing. Perhaps you don't always need to use commas, periods, colons, etc. But when we punctuate, it makes us, makes the sentences clearer. It's not just about giving the clarity, but when we are writing, it gives us the tone of the sentence, whether how we are going to read it out by, using this punctuation. Correct punctuation, it would add clarity and precision to the writing what we do. It helps us to, stop or pause or, give emphasis, or it emphasizes certain parts of a sentence when we try to give a proper punctuation mark. When we talk about the punctuation in further, it helps the reader to understand what message the writer would like to give to us, give to the readers, right? Sometimes, the usage of this punctuation would makes it easier for us to read and understand the ideas or point of view of the writer. So today we are going to focus on not just punctuation, but in detail, when do we have to capitalize or where do we have to capitalize? When we look at some of the students, who write in general, most of the people would capitalize in the middle of the sentences somewhere, which would be quite irrelevant, or there are people who never capitalize when they start off their sentence. So there are very few rules for capitalization. When you remember that, that would help you out in making a proper draft or help you out in reading things in a perfect manner. So let us look at the first rule. First word of a sentence should be capitalized. For example, Marvel is a disciplined boy. Even though he had to take charge of his family responsibilities at a young age. These are two sentences that I have written. The first sentence, Marvel, it's a proper noun. M has been capitalized because I have started off that sentence with the name Marvel. When we look at the second sentence, even though it's actually a continuation about the person who's named Marvel, still because it's a fresh sentence, I've started off with capital E. This is the first rule. When we look at the second rule, I, which is a personal pronoun, we have to capitalize it even if it is there in the middle of a sentence. For example, Pihu and I had been to the old age home yesterday. Okay, so I and Chaitanya like ice cream. That could be another example. So whether I start off a sentence with I or whether I have placed I in the middle of a sentence or at the end of the sentence, wherever it could be, but I independently is a first person pronoun. So it should be capitalized. The next rule is capitalizing the proper nouns. For example, when I talk about religious terms, for example like God, Allah, Hindu, Mecca, Methodist, and several other religious terms. For example, it could be even religious texts. The Gita, the Quran, these could be the religious terms and they need to be capitalized. Under proper nouns, there would be names of the buildings, like some of the buildings like Taj Mahal, Birla Mandir, Cathedral, Mecca Masjid. These could be the examples for names of the buildings. So they need to be capitalized. Another example for languages. Hebrew, Greek, Hindi, Telugu, English. Whenever you are talking about languages or writing about languages, languages should start off with capital letters. The next point is holidays. Holidays also have to be capitalized. Christmas, Diwali, Ramzan, Guru Purnima, etc. These have to be capitalized. We have some more rules for capitalization. When we talk about places or geographical features, they are very different all across the world. So when I talk about the ocean, the biggest ocean, the Pacific, P should be capital. The New Delhi should be capitalized. Bora Caves, B should be capitalized. The next point is titles and designations before a name. So these are some titles which could be given to people. The titles or the awards, which people do receive. For example, Bharat Ratna, Padma Bhushan. Padma Bhushan, R.K. Narayan, who is an author who was awarded Padma Bhushan. So Padma Bhushan is a title or award which was won by him. So it should be in the capital letter. Look at the example, I met CM KCR. So when I'm talking about the designation of particular person by name KCR, I have mentioned his designation before his name. So that is the reason I have capitalized it and I have used the short form of it. But whereas if I'm going to just say KCR, I met KCR, the Chief Minister of Telangana. So there is no need for us to capitalize his designation when we are using his name first. And Telangana, remember that Telangana is a place, so capitalize T. Look at the next example similarly. Maybe you can make out a mistake that I have made intentionally over here. We spoke to Professor Sita. What is a mistake here? P for professor, which has to be capitalized because it is Professor Sita and professor is a proper noun. So instead of using this, what are we going to do? In case if I'm just talking about some particular person who's a professor, because we are not telling it in detail whether whom I have met in specific, we can just say we spoke to professor. Alright, so P in the first sentence has to be capitalized. So look at the next rule. The first word of each word of a poem, each sentence in a poem has to be capitalized unless the poet uses the lowercase. Lowercases instead of capitalization if a poet or a writer is using a normal short alphabets, then you can just continue with that. The next rule is days of the week and months. Days of the week and months have to be capitalized. I have written one each. Sunday, May. But when it comes to seasons, we should not use any sort of capitalization here. The last rule for capitalization is we need to never forget to capitalize the titles of the books or songs and articles. For example, I've just given you an example of a book written by Chetan Bhagat, Half Girlfriend. So this is capitalized. Half H, girlfriend G. G has been capitalized. And whenever we are talking about an article or a book name, we are supposed to place them in quotes. Alright? So these are some of the basic rules of when to capitalize and what are the basic rules of capitalization. I hope you have understood it. We'll meet for the next topic. Bye bye.